how the client perceive the value of the pricing, and look at different models on how you can achieve this. We have a 2-hour session, as we normally have, booked in the calendar, and hopefully we will try to see if we can wrap it up a little bit earlier, if possible. No promises, but we'll do our best. This is normally how we do it. Today, Stefan is traveling. As you see, I'm alone here today. Stefan Skoglund, he's on his way to Turkey. Do you want to say hi, Stefan, and show us that you are still with us?
Yeah, I'm listening here on my travel. I'm coming back on Tuesday again. So if you have any questions to me, please take them with the team while I'm gone. So thank you. Have a great session with the team here.
Excellent, thank you. And then of course we have Stefan Pettersson with us in Asker, in Norway, and Aline and Dasha as well. Okay, so what I think we should do first is to do a quick round with all our startups, at least the startups that are here now, and we'll see what your perspective is on the subject matter here today. And Joel, I can see you in the screen, so I'm probably going to start with you. Can you hear me, Joel? I see that your microphone is muted. So basically today we're going to talk about value-based pricing. I know that you are now in the pivoting situation, so it's probably not for you to answer this question. But basically the question is, how do you think that your prospective clients perceive the value of your services? Have you made any thoughts of that? What value you think you provide to your clients?
For the moment, we're in the process to do interviews with the HR managers and CEO. Mm-hmm. So we don't have the project, the service created yet. But the value we think we can provide to the clients, because we already had one client we tried to work with to create the solution. Is to give more to give the employees more performances and to make them feel better, I think, and to save to save time, because they try to sorry, my English is not I was not prepared. So because of a lot of companies, they don't think they need to do that, because they think just about performances. But there was a lot of burnouts to those days. There was a lot of burnouts, people that don't come to work, and the digital work too is a big challenge for companies now. So they need to find a solution to help them retain their employees. This is
I think we should try to just compress it to something quite narrow. And I think that most of you are not prepared for this question. We don't expect you to be prepared for it. But I think that it's important to start reflecting on the question, because now we have 2 hours where we're actually going to work on it. If we move on, thank you, Joel. Great perspectives. If we move on to Roland and the team in Switzerland, have you made any thoughts on the value that your client perceive of your solution?
Yes, we did, and we have also compared how much does it cost to treat mental issues with our solutions and our solution. So it costs in Switzerland around 2,000 euro, and our solution, our program is between 400 and 500 euro. So it makes sense, but it's not the perspective of end user, because they don't care about the wins for insurances. One perspective that we need to also consider are geographical differences, because ideally it should be one price in whole Europe, for example, but the prices in Switzerland, what is acceptable here might not be acceptable in Sweden. So we have definitely some challenges here to tackle. Would you like to add anything?
Yeah, there's different perspectives. For example, the employer market. So employees with mental issues, they're 3 times longer away from work than from any other disease. So employers are starting to invest in mental health programs. Most of these programs don't really offer solutions. They offer some sort of consultation and not much else than what's already available in the market. So we're we need to find, at least in the early phase, those channels to market that are willing to pay. So high net worth or more wealthy people, I guess, on the private side, and corporates, and we have some other ideas. Of course, the insurers are a target for us as a payer.
Great. It sounds like you thought through this quite a lot. Excellent. We'll move on to Bay next. I see that both Enis and Sarp is here. Any of you wants to catch the question here?
Hi, I missed the first 3 minutes, so could you please repeat the question?
Basically, the question and the topic of today is value-based pricing.
Okay.
Actually, how you think your client perceive the value of your services and your product. So
Okay.
how do you think your client will appreciate it? What do you think is the core value of what you provide?
Okay. Our core value is we help with the sense of feeling lost when you feel cognitive decline or brain fog. So you might go to a neurologist, but the neurologist might say, okay, I gave you the test, you're not sick. Then you go back to your life, but you're left with the feeling that your memory is worse, or you can't think clearly as you used to, and you don't know what to do. So one of our core values is we help you through this journey and help you implement lifestyle habits that improve this, that address this feeling. And our other core value is that we track you daily and objectively, so you can see without a doubt that whether you're on the decline or not. So
Okay.
I guess our value-based marketing is we help people feel safer and guide them through these uncertainties.
Thank you very much. Awesome.
Thank you.
We'll move on to Mode Social. I can see that Felicia, you're here with us today. Do you have any reflections on the question?
I am here, thank you. I'm thinking the value that mood brings emotionally or economically. Emotionally and value to the person, to the user, it would be again a way to find someone to do your activity with. I just myself know how many times have I not gone and done what I want to do because I'm lacking the company to do it with. So it's supposed to be a safe space to find like-minded people, feels that it's the same value to spend on certain activities, such as expensive concert or sports tickets or.
Yep.
Most of my friends are very lazy. So it's like, I want to go swimming. Like, no, couch, beer. I'm like, yeah, stuff like that. We found a new main income source, which is going to be event managers and venue managers. So for them, it's going to be a way to reach out to a group of people that are interested in doing certain activities on a safe space. It's not going to be Craigslist warning. It's not going to be missed out or spoiled by all the blur on Facebook and other social media, but focus. Here we know we will reach people who are actually actively looking for something to do.
Okay.
It will also give the event managers a way to follow the data and the information of what people find interesting to do.
And obviously, it links very strong to the business model to see you might have different stakeholders and different clients with different value props. So we'll get back to that. Thank you very much, Felicia. We move on to Datera. Actually, Turska with us as well.
Yes, hi. The core value is to effectivize the workflow in the healthcare so that they can spare more time to when we automate the repetitive tasks and also improve the patient experience so that they feel more involved in healthcare. So those are the core values that we want to bring to the customer. And those are actually the pain points that we address so that they really feel that this is something they would like to engage with, hopefully.
All right, thank you. Let's see who else is here today. We have Gulid with us from Record Doctor. Hi, Gulid.
Hi. From our point of view, well, first of all, we were lucky to have a session yesterday with Andrea and Anders regarding this, and we calculated that our the value that we would provide based on our tool that automates the patient note writing and administrative works for the doctors would save them around 1 to 1.5 hours per day of just typing the text or consultations. If calculated based on the salary of a primary healthcare doctor, the value that would be created based per doctor would be around 1,600 euros per month. For a private doctor, average salary is almost double the one that's working on the public sector. So the value would be double as well for these private doctors that would get more. And we were calculating that maybe the cost or the product cost, we were calculating based on that, that they would get maybe 10 times or 5 times the value of the cost of the money.
Okay, thank you. I can see we have Katarina with us from Meethelp as well. Do you want to share your perspectives on this as well?
Yes, hi. So we think that first of all, we reduce stress of looking for therapies and save time and money as we match our app users with the most suitable therapists. And also, as an addition, we provide self-help tools which are free. So that's also a value. That's all.
All right. Thank you very much. I think that's the startups that I can see here on the list. Did I miss anyone that's with us right now? Oh, Maria, here we are. Hi, Maria. We can't hear you. You need to unmute.
I'm going to be with you guys on audio today because I'm traveling. But okay. The health value for us is stress reduction, and research shows it's about 100,000 per employed person that gets to go on sick leave, but that's just the cost. It's a lot of other costs involved, and research I've done has shown that there is a huge increase in effectivity and how people relate together with the security in the office, and people become actually wiser in a sense by taking it easier, so they make better decisions. And overall, it's the feeling of feeling safe when you start talking about how you actually feel. That's one of the biggest differences, because you catch things a lot earlier. So yeah, that's short.
Thank you very much, Maria. So I think that's a good way to start the morning session, to share your initial ideas. And let's see now throughout the journey what we can do to help you improve those ideas as well and validate them. What we'll do now, before I hand over to Anders and his team, is I want to inform you about Friday the 20th. We're going to have a mentor startup session. So there will be 1.5 hours. Where all the mentors will present themselves and tell you a little bit about what are their core competencies, what startups they look to work with, and so on and so forth. So you will all get an invitation to this session, and I think it's a great way to start looking at building your extended team, because a lot of these mentors also might be interested to join you guys in the long run. So I really advise you to participate in this, and you will get the invitation from Dasha here later on today. So with that, I will hand over to Anders and the team. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Of course, I will start with putting up the presentation here. Let's see. Here we go. Can you see this?
Yes.
Good. So, hello everyone again. Me and Andrian has met a lot of you the past days, so it's really nice having this session now because now we know a little bit more about your businesses and so forth. We're going to do a presentation today about value-based pricing and customer journey. It's a pretty massive workshop. We've put in two 2 minutes breaks, so you can fetch a coffee or maybe have a bio break or something if you want to. So they are like after 1/3 and after 2/3 of the presentation, really. The agenda is to sort of, first of all, address the complexity in healthcare, about terms, what we call a stakeholder model. And the reason for this is to explain to you all how sort of complicated this environment is and how to, some advice on how to navigate in it. Then we're going to describe a concrete project that we performed during the end of 2022 and the beginning of this year. That was a mission that we got from Digital Well. And we actually worked with two customers, Asthma and Mindmore, to sort of define how can we measure the value-based pricing and the customer journey connected to real cases. And that we did together with people from Karolinska Institutet to Health Economics. And we started working with something called the NICE framework that we will go through a bit. And from that, we designed something which we call the NICE Light. There's no sort of definition that is NICE Light, but that's the way we interpret it and made it a little bit simpler on how to apply this to your businesses and start evaluating how you can come to the end of a value-based pricing and a customer journey. And at the end, we have some summary and advice. We will, at the end of the presentation, tell you that this is new for this cohort, that you will have 1 hour each or with us to sort of do a brief customer journey and get into sort of testing the methodology with us if you want to. So that's new for this year. But we start with the complexity in addressing healthcare and the terms. So I'll leave this presentation to Jenny.
Thank you very much. Well, we will walk through very briefly the Swedish healthcare system, and it is very much like the Nordic systems, but not all the way. So you have to be aware if you talk to Norway or Finland or Denmark, we don't have the same rules and laws. It varies on our organizations, but briefly, we look very much the same. And we have around 11 and 15 different regulations and authorities in all Nordic countries with different aims to, of course, help the patient the best way and the organizations. So we will focus on this complexity and also discuss with you what stakeholders you need to relate to, and should you address public or private sector first. That could be a very important step to take or decision. And once you manage to come through in the public sector, you never lose your customer. That's a good advice to know also. But it is hardcore and short to get into the public sector. So I have more than 40 years within the Swedish healthcare system, both as a nurse anesthetist, but also in leading and managing on a high level. So this is sort of my backyard, and it might look very confusing, and it is somewhat confusing, but these are some of the laws and regulations and institutions you might run across when you get close to Swedish healthcare system. So we will briefly go through all the different parts that you can see in this cloudy picture. So the very important one is the HSL, the Hälso- och sjukvårdslagen, which is the Healthcare Act of Sweden. And it tells you how healthcare activities must be organized and conducted. And the law also applies to healthcare providers if they're private, and it's in regions and in municipalities. So everyone is involved in this law. It is important, though, to know that Sweden has something called kommunallagen, the municipality law, that makes it possible for every region and municipality to take their own decisions. The kommunallagen is a very strong law, but the Healthcare Act is extremely important if you're going into healthcare fields. The next one is SOL, Socialtjänstlagen, and that's a law that applies on the municipalities' possibilities to help people in need. It can be financial assistance, or it can be assistance for elderly people or elderly care homes. So sometimes the Hälso- och sjukvårdslagen and the Socialtjänstlagen, they can be combined, but they can also crash. They can make quite a few problems in trying to solve different things around a patient. Next one is Patientsäkerhetslagen, the Patient Safety Act, and that is to ensure that the patient gets safety care and all, excuse me, that they should always be put in center for their needs and not be damaged by medical interventions. So if you have a problem, if you have an injury, you can actually complain using the Patientsäkerhetslagen. And then the next one is the freedom of choice system, which I think will apply on quite a few of you, especially in the beginning of your journey as a company, a startup. You have to follow this law to when you're trying to get into the market. It tells you everything about how you can establish your company. But if you're a small company and you want to sell something, you can use this law up to a cost of 700. No, I'm sorry. I'm into the wrong law. I'm sorry. This is the establishment law. I'm sorry. And this says that you can start a private company within the municipalities if the municipality choose to do so. They can say no, but the regions cannot say no to primary care. If you want to start a primary care doctor's station, you can do that if you meet the questions and you meet the needs that are required for this outpatient clinic, but the region can never say no. And you can, of course, have digital visits also. Now we go into the protection when it comes to protect your personal information and your data. And we have two different laws of data protection directive and the GDPR, which is an EU law that ensures that your information is safely used and gathered. And then we have the LOU. This is the one I was messing up the LOV with. But this is the law about how to carry out a procurement within official companies, and that is municipalities and regions. It's quite complicated, and you have to get into it step by step, and you can always get help from someone to go into a procurement. But you should know that you can use a limit for procurement up to 700,000 Swedish crowns at this point, which of course enables a small startup company to get into the market for a public organization. But this is, as I said, quite a messy project to get into, but once you're in there, you're in there. And then we have Socialstyrelsens förordningar och föreskrifter, and we have the riksdag with our politicians, and they decide on laws and also enacts on a special order constitutions. And then we have the government who decides on regulations. So ordinances often clarify and specify what is stated in the laws. So this is instructions for the healthcare system, of course, but all public instructions for Swedish society. We have 3 different levels of, very briefly or very broadly, of care in Sweden, and it's the one that is very much discussed, of course, is högspecialiserad vård, national highly specialized care, and that is care that is very complex or rarely occurs, and it is gathered to a few hospitals around Sweden, often or almost always university hospitals. It is expensive. It takes a lot of staff and, of course, a lot of planning around these patients, and as I said, very expensive. Then we have the specialized care, and that is, it could be medical or dental activities that are carried out, and it's prevention, examination, care, and treatment of disease. This is often in hospitals, but it can be in outpatients clinics also. And it also involves pre-hospital emergency healthcare and on-call and medical rehabilitation. But that's specialized care. And then we have the very, very big issue of primary care, which is then said to be, it has to be easily accessible. Primary care should refer to healthcare activities where open care is provided without limitation in terms of disease, age, or patient groups. And primary care is where we're trying to put very much effort in helping our patients early in their need of healthcare or care. But most politicians try to strive to more money for the primary care, but there's of course a complexity in dividing the money available between high specialized care, and primary care. So in discussing what values we have, what money we have to spend on healthcare in either one system you can talk about, we have been talking about value-based pricing for quite a few years in Sweden and value-based healthcare. Value-based healthcare did get a tough and rough journey in Sweden since it was combined with the new hospital of Karolinska sjukhuset. So the building was connected with a new way of working and counting on what you did get for your tax money or your budget. And so the value-based healthcare and the new building got sort of mixed up, and both places or both institutions got a very bad reputation. But as some of you have said in your introductions here, value-based pricing and value-based healthcare is very important because we only have this amount of money and we have to spend it wisely. And then you should look at what is valuable for the patient, for the caretaker to provide a product or a service, and not just how much money do you as a company earn on your product. In the very end, that will of course be very important, but it is important that you keep the patients and the one in need the most value for the money. And if you keep that in mind the whole time, you will end up with a very good product that will be asked for. So to put more emphasis on the value-based healthcare and value-based pricing, we did have a nice work together, as Anders said in the introduction, with 2 health economists from Karolinska Institutet. And they introduced us to NICE, which is provided by the British National Institute for Healthcare and Excellence, and it helps you to sort of define the steps in being on a value-based pricing road when it comes to deliver value-based healthcare. So within healthcare, we also have quite a few different systems for information documentation, and they have various forms, and you have to record in different places. This is a frustrating point for Swedish healthcare professionals. If you have an information system you want to develop, be sure to make it easy to apply into other systems. Then we have cybersecurity, which of course everyone can understand. It's extremely important, and especially in healthcare, where we have big challenges on what can be perceived as stressful to insert all the information into different systems. And then we have the vårdjournal documentation. The patient record is confidential and should be so. And all the information included in the patient journal or patient record must maintain a high security to minimize the risk of information leakage, of course. So these three clouds are very important to keep in mind. And then we have national guidelines. They show the benefits and the risks of various measures, and they support the healthcare to prioritize the right measures for those with greatest need. So the goal is to give the people the opportunity for good healthcare. And national guidelines should be followed, but are not always followed. So this was a brief and messy presentation, but do you have any questions? It's really very interesting if you get into it, but it took me at least 10 years to understand all the steps and phases of the public healthcare system, and with all its opportunities, but also fall downs.
Any questions? I can't see any hands up, so.
No.
Oh.
We keep on our civics class.
You've been crystal clear, Jenny. There is no question.
I don't think so, but you can look at the pictures afterwards and see if you, or the slides.
Yeah.
I have a question. Yeah. Is there any difference between privately owned healthcare providers as well, that they go through I assume that they go through the same procedures and laws and the systems, right?
Right. The big difference is, pardon?
There is no difference between a company or a privately owned or a healthcare which is supported by the government or the municipality.
No, all the laws apply the same way on each healthcare provider.
I would say there's one, Jenny, and that is they don't go under with the public procurement law.
No, that's right.
So they have a shorter path to procurement than the public ones, because they don't have to follow the public procurement regulations. So that is the only difference, I would say.
Yes, that's the difference. But otherwise, when it comes to patient security, everything is the same. The same laws apply for everyone. Then you can say that the big debate between privately run and region-run healthcare systems is that if you're private, you can use your budget, and if you have a deficit or what you have, you can use that in different ways. In the public healthcare, you have a 1-year budget. It starts 1st of January, it ends on the last of December, and if you've a big deficit, you don't have to carry that with you. But of course, you never feel that you have enough money in public healthcare, whereas you in private can dispose of your money in different ways to actually also make some money from your healthcare. or what you're providing.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting thing because, like Jenny said in one of the early slides, is that there is a big sort of hurdle to get into the public sector in terms of the procurement processes and stuff like that. The upside of it is actually once in, you never get out. So you almost have a customer forever. Actually, when I ran my own company for like 17 years, we got about 50% of our revenue from the public sector. And we had a bit sort of a event this spring with the founders of that company. We had a meeting because it was a 20-year anniversary. And there's only one guy left of the founders. And he told me that they have still not lost one customer in the public sector. They're all still there, all the ones we got in. And they're also expanding within those customers. So it might seem like a hell of a life to get into the public sector, but it's worth it once you get in. And I think what we're going to talk about today, the customer journey and the value-based pricing later on, sort of gives you a tool to get in and go to arguments for that. Okay. Yes.
It's a difficult question maybe, but I presume you will talk how the process is to get in, right? And I presume it takes years rather than months. Is that the right
No, it's actually we will not talk a lot about the procurement processes today. We're going to talk about the tool, how to sort of prove that your solution or service actually provides value. But there are some tricks to get through anyhow. I can tell you one is actually that there are, at least in the Nordic countries, there are quite a few big IT companies that have a lot of frameworks agreements with the public sector. And you can usually actually do piggyback on them. They're allowed to sort of let subcontractors in through the system. Of course, they take a cut, whatever, usually 10% or something like that. And you have to sign a bundle of papers like this, that you take all the responsibility for your product. They don't. But it's actually a way to get through, to use these framework agreements and go as a subcontractor. The only trick there is then you have to find, because what you need to do is actually to sell the product directly to the public sector and then find a framework agreement owner that you can actually sell it through. So it's in that sense, it's actually a bit less complicated than it was like 10 years ago, because they knew that it's sort of stopping all the small companies that had great ideas for getting through the system.
And it is like Anders is saying now, it's a very complicated process. So once you have a product within the healthcare system, you like to keep that for many, many years, because if you're going to do a new procurement process, you will have to let staff go and help in this procurement process, and it takes too much time. And then you have to maybe rearrange everything within your system. If you have a new tool, you have to introduce into your system. So you try to sort of stick to the old ones because you know what you have, but you don't know what you will get. So
okay.
We have the next one. It's also a quite confusing picture, but it's our stakeholder model. You have to sort of know about these different organizations that you might meet or should meet when you're trying to introduce a new product. And so we will go through each and every step, but we should emphasize that Sweden has 21 regions and we have 290 municipalities, and they are from very big like Stockholm or extremely small like Djursholm, who have 2,000 inhabitants. And they all have their own, they can all rule by kommunallagen, as I said when I started. And kommunallagen is a strict law which gives every municipality and region its possibility to rule on its own circumstances and priorities. And this if you sell a product to one region, it doesn't say that everyone else can go on the same procurement process, or that you can have it delivered to all the other ones, because everyone has to make their own decisions. And then when it comes to 290 municipalities, that's really a lot of work for someone who wants to introduce a product, because you can't take them in a bundle. You have to take them one and one, almost always. But we will walk through all these on a short trip here. Socialstyrelsen is the National Board of Health and Welfare, and it is an authority for care and social care. They receive assignments from the Riksdag and the government in an annual regulation letter, and they gather knowledge and statistics, among very many other things, and provide the right basis for various decisions concerning healthcare and social services. So the Socialstyrelsen will help the community, the municipalities and the regions, but they will also put pressure on the municipalities and regions to do the things the right way. SKR, they are very big when it comes to organizing the municipalities and regions as an employer organization, and it's run by politicians. But then, of course, you have civil servants who represent every region or municipality and work together with the others for different questions or options they have to solve for the country. Sometimes you will find Socialstyrelsen and SKR working not with each other, but more against each other, which makes everything very confusing and upsetting sometimes. But they have very different tasks to solve, and it's very important to remember that SKR is run by politicians. TLV is an important organization also. The name is somewhat confusing. The Dental and Pharmaceutical Benefits Agency, and they decide on dental care, but they also decide on prices for medicine and consumables. And if it's a very expensive, we say, some very expensive medication they find out or want to introduce, they can include it in the high cost protection. And then the state will fund some of these high cost medicines that will be on the market. It's not specifically said that this amount of money that the state will send to the region will go to this medicine A. It's just that you get a bundle of money that will cover some of the costs for your medication, for example, in a region. And then we have the IVO, which is responsible for supervision of healthcare personnel and social services, and also activities according to the Act on support and services for certain disabled people, like it's called also the LSS. This authority is also responsible for certain permit checks. So they check that you have, if you're a registered doctor, nurse, or physiotherapist, they check that you actually work according to your register and that you apply all the rules that you have to acknowledge. Very important is also the Work Environment Agency, and it's an authority that the government and the Riksdag mandate to ensure that laws on work environment and working hours are being followed by companies and organizations. And the AMV is also responsible for some extent for the Tobacco Act and for the environmental code with regard to questions about genetic engineering and pesticides. But you should know about Arbetsmiljöverket. They can actually enforce you to close down a company if you're not putting in respect into the laws we have to live along. Fackliga organisationer, a range of different employee organizations are usually represented in municipalities, regions, and companies. And the collaboration between unions and employers is regulated in collaboration agreements or through MBL is a Co-Determination Act. What I would say with my experience from healthcare is that if you're going to present a new product or service, be sure to enclose someone from one of these organizations in your work very early, because they can open up doors. If you have a service that will make their life easier or be helpful for the staff, it's very good to have them with you very early in the process when you're starting to present something, rather than having them coming in the very end, and you might just end up in a conflict because they were not informed. And they can also give you very good information about what is working, what's not working, what would be helpful, what's not helpful. So don't be too late in contacting these employee organizations. And then we have the last, we have the Integritetsskyddsmyndigheten. Datainspektionen was their former name, and now they're called IMY, the Privacy Protection Authority, and they work to protect personal data from from healthcare and finances, so that it's handled correctly and it doesn't end up in the wrong hands. And this is, of course, connected to all the other systems for secure your personal data. And then we have patient organizations. As I said about the workers, employee organizations, it's important to involve these in when you're starting to present a company or a solution of some kind. Try to make it easy to contact patient organizations. They also know what they need, what it should look like, what's helpful for them. And they do have the politicians' ears in many, many cases. So they can be helpful in opening doors, and they can be helpful in giving you the right connection with important people if you want to introduce your product. So these are not always picked up as important, but they are important. And we have quite a few cases where we can tell that patient organizations, employee organizations have solved problems for new companies. And then we have something called nära vård, or good and close care. It was work started after a long study of how Swedish healthcare was working and how it should be working in the future. And what this contains is a reform to make sure that the care is given to the patient very close to where the patient lives. And it should be easy accessible, it should be easy understandable. And what we have today is a bad communication between different instances in healthcare system. So if you come from highly specialized care to specialized care and then to primary care, you will have so many different people and staff to talk to, doctors, nurses, physiotherapists, etc. But this good and close care is aimed for a possibility to do as much as possible in your home with the support of digital solutions. So here we have a big arena for smart digital solutions for the future of Swedish healthcare. And then we have this little vision. It's been around for a couple of years, and we are somewhat in a hurry because it says that by 2025, Sweden will be the best in the world at using the possibilities of digitalization and e-health in order to make it easier for people to achieve good and equitable health and well-being, develop and strengthen own resources for increased independence and participation in community life. So you can see that close care, nära vård, and e-health is sort of a part of e-hälsa vision 2025. But we have a long, bumpy road before we can actually live up to the vision of e-hälsa. That's my opinion. Yes. So after this little civics class, we take a short break. And while you're standing up and jumping or picking up some coffee, have you defined your main stakeholders? You can try to figure that out until we come back in 2 minutes. Short break.
Okay, see you in 2 minutes, everyone. Have we had our 2 minutes?
We have.
So the question was, after this break, is sort of gone through this sort of complex environment. Have you sort of any thoughts on sort of how you sort of relate to these stakeholders who probably would be part of your challenge when you go into this market? Can start with Tucci.
Yeah, good question. Actually, we have been focusing on the privately owned caregivers so far, but we have been also thinking about narrow down and see if we need to focus on the ones on the primary care, which they have a broader scope than the ones that's with the specialists care. And now I see Nära Ward. I don't know how they are more close to the e-health or e-Hälsa, I believe. So that is something going on because we need to narrow down a little bit more than just privately owned. But it's something we are exploring and try to make it more concrete to target.
Yep.
Yeah.
Roland?
The short answer is not yet concretely to Sweden or the Nordic countries. That's part of the reason why we're so interested in the collaboration with Digital Well Ventures. Of course, we have identified stakeholders in Switzerland, in Germany, in the US to some extent. And stakeholders for us are our channels to market, so B2B2 channels, but then of course, the end customer, in some cases, they're our direct payer. In other cases, the companies under corporate employee health plans and the channels to them. There's companies that organize health programs for corporates. And then thirdly, the insurance sector, private and public, although we have been in discussions with several private insurers, and that's the model in Switzerland, and they're showing interest. They're just waiting for clinical evidence, despite the fact that we already have pretty interesting data, but they're waiting for clinical evidence, understandably. And so we're exploring the channels, and we're, as I said, very interested to explore the channels to those stakeholders in the Nordic countries.
Yeah. Good. In Helsinki, are you with us?
Yes. For us, we've been contacting and identifying the stakeholders. They are divided between the public and the private sector, and there is a major change in the healthcare in Finland ongoing, where there is reorganizing the municipalities into welfare areas. And now it's not very clear who decides on what yet. There are some cooperation between the multiple like welfare areas in the public sector, and they make some like purchase decisions on that level on a like larger scale. But I think it's very much same as in Sweden, that some decisions are made very like locally. So we've had some difficulties maybe contacting like who's actually making the decision. Is it the digital, the person that's responsible for the digital services versus the person that's responsible for the health services? So we're working on this. Like we've contacted both, but I think what we've received the best feedback is maybe to have a senior doctor recommend us to the digital person or head, and then to start from that. I think the other way around has not worked for us. Yeah.
What you actually can do is, when you look at this sort of complex environment that you have to address, what you can do is actually use the first part of the go-to-market strategy, where you try to identify your buying personas. And the buying persona is not necessarily someone who actually will use the product. It can have an influence on budget. They can influence on efficiency within your organization, and of course the one who's going to use the product and sort of get the benefits of it. But just thinking through that, you usually get, because you need to influence different kind of people with different arguments. You might remember we talked about the go-to-market strategy last Wednesday, I think it was. So the first step there is, I think, in what you're describing, the most important one. Because after a while you start understanding where the ticks, so where things start happening. Okay.
Okay.
Who's next? Dennis? I can only see part of your names here on my screen, so.
So for us, on the B2C side, I would imagine patient associations would be the key. But seeing how Alzheimer's is turning into a public health crisis all over Europe and the US, we can also start looking into maybe how we would go about a public collaboration. But in addition to that, we also had in our plans to go to corporate wellness programs as well, but we don't know of any central body where we can go about it. So we found some, for example, in Canada, there is this, let me remember the name, lead.com, where there are websites that go to corporate wellness and you sort of get into them as an add-on, and there is you give them a cut and they open their portfolio to you. So maybe we can go about it like that.
Okay, thank you. Joel?
Yes. Since we didn't create the service yet, so it's a little bit difficult to answer, but it will be good to get in touch with some employees organization and to see if how we can help them in their journey regarding the workplaces and the way the longevity at work and in their life too. So I don't know which organization is specified for employees on that.
Was that a question?
Yes, it was a question because I'm not sure about if it was some. I thought you were mentioning something, but I'm not sure.
So please formulate the question again. I was actually looking
okay. So I say, is there organization that is specialized for employees?
For employees?
Yes.
Oh, quite a few, depending on what your field is, sort of. There are employee organizations for doctors, for nurses, for caretakers, different kinds.
Yes.
So you can Google and find the different organizations and then try to find a local representative to start talking to in a hospital or in a primary care outpatients clinic. I would do that.
Okay.
To just start introducing, and then you can work your way up. But in my perspective, it's very nice to have them, either the employee organization or the patient organizations, onboarded pretty early in your development of your product or service. Yes.
Okay, good.
So there are quite a few big ones, employee organizations, but you also have them in smaller groups in each company or privately or publicly run company.
It's more about the municipalities or region. Or is it both?
Both.
Okay. Okay.
Actually, employee organizations are quite strong in Sweden, and you will find them almost everywhere.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Are we ready to move on?
Did we miss someone? No?
I don't think so.
No? Great.
Hi, it's
Maria here.
Yes.
I'm traveling in the car, so I
Sorry,
don't
sorry,
have
Maria.
much sound. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I'm traveling in the car, so my sound is not great. But basically, I didn't do any of this when I started working with the municipality, and they became kind of the people with the data the policies, and made me realize what kind of product I actually needed to create. So this is definitely a very good thing to have the right stakeholders to begin with. But this is for now, for me, is the municipality that is kind of helping me develop the product.
Great.
Okay. So now to the next step in the agenda, the concrete project that we spoke about within healthcare that sort of ended up in what we call the nice light. So I give it to Andrian.
Yes, thank you. So as Anders introduced earlier today, we got a project from Digital Well Arena to support two companies, Mindmore and AsthmaTuner, in defining a model for them for value-based pricing for their innovations. So Mindmore is a diagnostic tool for cognitive disorders, and AsthmaTuner does diagnosis and treatment for asthma. So we took the help of two health economics from Karolinska Institutet, and then that's where we resulted in the patient journey discussions that we will go into more details in the next few slides with Anders later on. He will explain to you how it all is formed. But you can take the next slide. So basically, we develop a methodology looking at those two companies, like, okay, we have to look at the current price models and what impact it has, and then establish the whole stakeholder picture, exactly what Jenny talked about earlier. That's when we started mapping everything, how complex is it? And then redesign their go-to-market based on, everything that we looked at currently, their price models and the stakeholder picture. Okay, how can they tackle the market in a different way? And then developed a new test phase called the weather balloon, that Anders called that send out the balloon and test the new product. And then they conclude, evaluate and conclude in the end. But what we realized was that those two companies, we thought we could actually take them together and run the project with both. We realized that those two startups were at very different stages, even if they were still both startups. But we had to split them into two different flows, because AsthmaTuner had a lot of relevant data, and they could work with that already. But AsthmaTuner had to start collecting relevant data. So data became really the issue there. So we did two different flows for those two companies, exactly the same methodology, but we had to treat them in parallel instead of being able to run the project with both at the same time. So what happened was with Mindmore, which we thought early on in the process was needed to collect data, things went much faster for them. So this tool to help for mental health diagnostic, they were focusing at the beginning on the big market for them was ADHD patients, and that's where the big potential was, they thought. But after a long workshop where we decided, okay, where can Mindmore help? Dementia was identified as one of the segments, and then we realized that focusing on one segment was what they needed to do, because they were split and trying to tackle all the different segments and not focused on any of them, and like losing their resources and getting lost into the complexity of that. So we said, okay, let's try and focus on dementia. And we looked at, okay, what can Mindmore impact? What's the impact on the dementia? Just this diagnostic for Mindmore, for your patient journey today and tomorrow with Mindmore. And we help them to say, okay, what kind of information do you need to gather to be able to map that process? And this is what they did, and really map that process. I will show you that afterwards. And based on that, then they've been able to address this dementia marker. You can take the next slide, Anders. So what you can see is that before Mindmore, this is a basic dementia investigation that would take 230 minutes with the different steps, with a really basic paper-based test and the cost of it, so based. And then, so this is a typical patient journey with, so the one you saw before was current. So that's the one that you see on the below part, without Mindmore, and then above was with Mindmore. And then you can see that from 230 minutes with the current solution, they were ending up with a solution that was 105 minutes, that was identified that we could save up to 55%. And this is huge. It's a huge argument when you need to convince a healthcare center to use you and test your tool, because then it means that they can treat so many more patients and offer so much more support to current patients instead of losing so much time into, a lot of time is of course lost in administration and writing down the reports and getting a test that is not efficient because it's paper-based.
I have a comment there, Andrea.
Yeah.
I have a good friend who's been working at Scania, you know, the truck manufacturer. And I told him these figures that we save 55% in production. And he said that at Scania, they would gladly spend 1 billion Swedish crowns to find 1% in efficiency in production. In this case, with a very small investment, we find 55%. It's enormous, these figures. Sorry about that.
No problem. Then they looked even further and looked at, okay, that was the basic investigation, but then you could do this investigation at home. Sometimes people need to, they send a doctor or a therapist that does this diagnostic at home and look at how the patient is handling all the different tasks that they have to do at home. And there the reduction was even more, because it was that we went up to 70% of time reduction, because of course you save a lot of time a lot of things can be done, even if you're on site, a lot of things can be done in parallel while the person is doing the test. So in summary, what we do in the end when you have done your patient journey is looking at trying to identify what we call quantifiable and non-quantifiable effects. So quantifiable are the ones that you can put a number on it. So the time saved is often one of them. So 55% in their case, up to 70%. And then of course, looking at saving time, you can increase the number of patients you can diagnose at the same time. And then healthcare spends less admin time, so they have more focus on patient care. And all these time savings, you can actually turn them into money, because time saved is, okay, how much more time, how much of their time cost per hour, depending on the position in healthcare. You can identify what their average salary and wage is per hour, and then you can turn that into savings. But then the other very important aspect are those non-quantifiable effects, which are not really obvious or difficult to set a price on, but they can be huge. So improved overall patient customer experience for them. No need to visit the healthcare centers. They can do the test at home. They can do the test digitally. It's so much more easier. The healthcare staff is less stressed because the workload is lower. And all the think about all the families, all of that is everything. The whole process is made so much more easier. So that really helped the team. This focus really helped the team to focus on dementia, and they got into. So what they had as target healthcare centers, all of a sudden they had negotiations going much faster and turned 5 different prospects into, I think, clients really quickly, much faster than the sales cycles that they had before, because they were having a much broader offer. Now they were looking at they looked at different after healthcare centers. They even looked at äldrevård, so for older people. So looking at different price models, but it's really proven to be a good test for them. And of course, once they were in, so that was also the thing. Once they were in with dementia, they had a tool that was working more, and that healthcare center knows that the tool and work, and they use it for dementia. Then they could go in and say, okay, look, this tool can also be used for other cognitive tests, such as ADHD and other disorders. So for them, it was much easier to then, once they were in, broaden the offer and then go and tackle that, before they were trying to go and say, okay, we can do all of that. And that was not narrow enough. So it's really key to just focus on one thing first and then do it good. Looking at Asthma Tuner, so Asthma Tuner was actually further in the process, because they had been accepted by this famous TLV, which I think is always funny, because it's the dental care is the first thing you hear, that they is a dental care authority, and they accept also all the other medications. Anyway, they had been accepted for kids into the system. So that was for them, the big challenge was they wanted to be accepted for adults as well, and they wanted to help us look at the statistical analysis for that. So we looked at that and got the help of the health economics for that. But we also did look at the patient journey for them, and you can look in the next slide. And that was also very significant, what the time savings would be there, and gave them very good arguments on how they could. What Asthma Tuner was actually bringing when selling the tool to the different regions. What was also very interesting was that they actually realized that looking at all those guidelines that Jenny was talking about, healthcare centers are actually not compliant with the asthma guidelines that are being issued today, because none of the healthcare centers today have the resources and the time to actually get compliant with the guidelines on how many patients they have to see. All the asthma patients have to be seen once per year, and none of them has the time to do that. But using this tool with Asthma Tuner can actually bring them closer to getting compliant with those guidelines, because then all those tests can be done digitally by the patient himself, and they can just monitor the results. So there are really different aspects that are important to think about when trying to find arguments for your product. You can take the next one, Anders. So we looked at the patient journey there, which it was a lot more different steps between nurses and doctor. But what we could look is that without Asthma Tuner, the total time per patient, for example, for just a normal asthma patient visit was 170 minutes without Asthma Tuner. And using Asthma Tuner, because the test with the spirometer that they used is so much faster, they were saving 92 minutes. We are talking 1.5 hours per patient. It's huge savings, which, as Anders said, it's like in some industries, people are just dreaming about 1 or 2 minutes or a couple of percentage savings. So this is really a huge argument for them. And of course, then you can turn in those minutes into monetary savings per patient, and look at how many more patients you can actually treat. Yes. So again, quantifiable, non-quantifiable effects. So significant time saved for a patient visit, or even for the diagnosis is even higher savings, and increased number of patients that can be treated. Those non-quantifiable effects, overall, of course, customer experience. You don't need to visit your healthcare center. You have better control of your asthma, so you're less stressed about controlling of your asthma. If it's a child, then a lot less stress on family members, parents, because they know, you can monitor your asthma, and then if you're not following the right trend, then it gives you tips on how to adjust your medication. And the healthcare staff, of course, they reduce stress level because they know that they can treat many more patients, and also because they are getting closer to fulfilling those national guidelines for asthma patients. So we didn't get to getting final results with Asthma Tuner because they got stuck into a lot of the regions negotiations on bringing the right data. But we gave them really good arguments with the patient journey in order to convince regions to use Asthma Tuner. Yes. So main learnings, basically collecting the right data early is really important to value-based pricing. So addressing which type of data you need to collect and start early in order to have that data then to understand your patient journey. So yes, and that's where we got into this Nightlight checklist that Anders will show you before. It's a great support to define what set of data you should collect. And then if you later on, you can also look at this nice framework to collect even stronger data once you're moved further on. And you should always continue to think about value-based care and value-based pricing when you develop your product, and always think, okay, what value am I bringing? And dare to make a choice at product and market segmentation level. So dare to focus your order, focus your offer to one or specific segment, one specific geography, and one specific type of diagnosis or patient to succeed before you can broaden your offer. Nobody says that you should not be broad afterwards, that you cannot, scale your offer afterwards, but be focused at the beginning. Like for you to take, it's really right to take private care and focus on that first, make it success. So take one specific, like we did with Asthma Tuner Dementia, that really helped them. And the one you pick might be the one, maybe not the biggest potential, because of course it's for a lot of you, it's much better to go into not private sector, but God, I'm looking for the word.
Public
sector. Yes, sorry, thank you. But then maybe it's the more potential, but that's the one. But look at the one with the shortest track to success, and then you have that success, and you can build on that. Thank you, Jenny. This model is like a checklist, so it's really easy to look at. We've really shown what it's. I mean, it's a checklist, and nothing can be really one size fits all. So really have to adjust it to your needs and your product, and select like you've seen with all the stakeholders and the guidelines. You need you will never be able to look at everything, and you cannot address all the stakeholders. You just really need to pick the most relevant ones and make it your own checklist and your own list of things that you need to address. Yes. And describing the patient and the user journey early really helps you to show the benefits that your product or service will provide. And it's usually a great tool both for you and then for your investors and for your sales team or yourself when you go out and sell. Like, you can really show the benefits both graphically, but also in terms of time and money, of the savings of your products versus the current solution. And then it's a no-brainer. And I mean, that's an argument that nobody will be able to discuss, because it's based on relevant data. And identify your key stakeholders and only involve the relevant ones, so you don't get lost into this complexity. So the NICE framework, in short steps, I won't take too many, because you will have the link to the website in our presentation. It's a very, very thorough and deep framework that you can get lost into. But so that's why it's there actually. But you can start. Yes. So as you all know, healthcare is always asking for high level of evidence and clear data to support the procurement processes, which are long and complex, as Jenny was saying. They are complicated and time consuming. They require resources that startups usually don't have because they don't have the time, and it's really difficult to meet the requirements that is being asked from a small startup. So that's what we looked at this framework that we've been talking about, both Jenny and Anders before, which is really helpful to help you meet the demands that you will be asked in terms of evidence and what your business has to actually be compliant with. So what NICE did in the framework, you can take the next slide, is that they have developed really detailed rules, and those rules are actually to promote the consistency when evaluating digital healthcare technologies. So it's both a tool for the people in the authorities that actually assessing new digital health technologies, and also the ones who are developing them. So giving them tools that they can talk together and see, okay, we are assessing you on this and this and this level and this level, and that person, they talk the same language because they have a framework that they together can relate to. Yes. So basically, it helps to understand what information is needed and what evidence should be created to be able to actually be accepted in the healthcare system. And as we heard from the health economist, this NICE framework was developed in the UK, but it's actually being used more by companies outside of the UK than in the UK, because it's so thorough and so well developed that you can just really pick and choose from that to be able to develop the right data for your product. So basically, what they use is a 3-tier approach just to first categorize the different technologies. So basically, is this technology helping to save costs or staff time? So no direct patient contact or patient care. So that's one of them. Or does that tool help citizens and patients to manage their own health and wellness? So just really for patients. Or is it something about TRC, being treating diagnosis, medical conditions, and more into that. So they first do this different selections, and after that, developing on the next slide different sets of standards, which for early development stage companies would look into 5 groups. So basically, looking at the design. So how do you design your technology, your company, how you describe the value that your company is bringing, how you demonstrate the performance of your business, how you deliver that value, and then how you deploy. So deployment, what you have to take into consideration when you deploy your technology into the healthcare sector. So all of that were with different standards on what you need to look at for your products. And based on that framework, then looking at all those 16 standards, we've developed this tool called NICE Lite, because even this is the Lite framework, but we did a light version for you, where we took the most important, the most relevant ones for you to have a look at. And that Anders will present in the next slides. Any questions? Nope.
Does it make sense?
I have one question. The projects you mentioned with 2 companies, did they do some kind of a pilot with the customer to be able to measure how much time they save, or how did it go?
Well, Mind More had, yes, they did. They actually spoke to different nurses. Nurses, or I mean, nurses were in the case of Asthma Tuner. They spoke to all the asthma nurses and have the several ones assess the process, so they could gather the data in terms of time saved and time spent. Same thing with Asthma Tuner. They spoke to different clients and helped them and have them, give an assessment on the time and then comparing this data and gathering. Yes, so it's really.
So they have done an interview, but not a pilot project, right? Where they.
I think Asthma Tuner had a pilot project. Asthma Tuner did interviews, but there were existing clients that had actually used the tool. Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Any more questions? So then we'll take another short break, 2 minutes. So we'll be back in 2 minutes. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I think that was 2 minutes. Everyone back? So then we go into the last part of this workshop. And that is what we call the checklist for the NICE Light, which consists of a number of steps. Some of them we covered quite a lot now, but we sort of put it all together in this model that we use. And I would like to start with saying that NICE Light is, of course, not a definition from NICE. It's something that we sort of extracted from this model. Probably get sued by NICE sooner or later, but we thought it was a bit too complicated for companies in very early stages to take all these steps into consideration. try to sort of extract the most important ones for the first step. So it's about IT architecture, or we translated it rather into a number of other bullets, what they call design factors, we call IT architecture. They have what they call describing value, which for us is go-to-market strategy, including price strategy, of course. They have something they call demonstrating performance, which we converted into data collection. They have delivering value, which we converted into patient journey, and also delivering value, which is sort of identify quantifiable and non-quantifiable effects that we've been talking about in these two projects now that we showed you. And finally, we have what they call deployment consideration, which we sort of convert into production and performance of your solutions. So if we go a little bit deeper into this, to start with the IT architecture, we have some advice here. And that one, the first one is that make sure that your architecture is able to secure production for both safety and reliability, and most important of all, maybe scalability and sustainability. We've seen quite a few examples of companies building apps or IT platforms that doesn't scale, for example. It's quite easy to make sure from the very beginning that you can scale your platform and that it's safe. And we have a note here that says, make sure your servers are located in the European Union, the EEC, and run by European companies, not American ones. If you have followed this discussion, I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago, there was an agreement made between Brussels and Washington regarding these regulations. That sort of would have solved the problem with using Azure or Amazon Web Services or Google or whatever. And it only took 2 weeks, and now we have uncertainty again. So my advice is still that if you're going to run these type of applications within the European Union, make sure that you're running them on clouds that are actually based in Europe and based in European companies. So you don't get, because it's a big discussion, again, in Sweden, for example, in the health tech sector, whether you can use American companies for your cloud services. So do you have any thoughts on IT architecture? Have you taken this into consideration already? We could start with Tutrian, because I see you there.
You mean me or?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we have been discussing this. I discussed this with lawyers as well, just to understand the rules. Because there are some exceptions if you have a data center here in Sweden, but the company is American, what happens? And they have some different opinions about that. But we have been talking with some IT cloud vendors in Sweden, also in Germany, who can take care of the compliance so that we don't need to think about it if we use their resources. But yeah, we know about this challenge using the big companies where they are based in US and they have different regulations than European Union, and that's a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's important to understand here that the Cloud Act in USA says actually if a server is owned by an American company, whether it's placed in somewhere in Europe or not, it doesn't matter. They are allowed to go in and check data, even patient data if they want to. Actually.
Yeah.
Gulad, have you looked into this?
Yes, very much so. And GDPR was, pardon me.
Well, go on, Roland. We can do Gulad afterwards.
Pardon me. I misheard. Excuse me. So we took GDPR into consideration. Our colleague is 30 years at Credit Suisse, has done IT architecture for private client data and so forth, and that's the standard that we've applied. And we're using a service provider based in Switzerland. So all our data remain in Switzerland. In fact, we even have 2 servers, one where there's private data, and the other server there is data that we exchange with laboratories and other stakeholders.
Good.
Yes, I think I think we still maybe struggling because we did get off guard regarding that fact that even if the company is American, even if the data or the servers are located in EU, the intelligence service could still access based on American laws. Regarding that, we have to say we haven't taken that into consideration. We only looked if the service provider had GDPR compliant label, but maybe that's not fully could be problems regarding that. Also, I've been writing down names of the other colleagues here as well, who really seem to have dig deep into here. So Tuğçe and Roland, I might be contacting you guys as well to ask how did you manage to get those contacts, and maybe we have to reconsider these American companies.
Yeah. Joel?
Yes. So we have a CTO that has approximately 15 years experience regarding the digital the development of app. So it took everything in consideration, but now that will probably be more focused on B2B. So we need to figure it out how it will be, but we will we will go with the same process, I think. So yes.
Yep. Dennis?
We are kind of in the same situation. We use Amazon servers that are located in Germany. So it being a US company, we have to look into it.
Yep. And who else do we have?
Hi, this is Katerina from Meetup.
Yeah, hello.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not that good at IT as my team members that are not on this call. I know that we follow GDPR regulations and we are registered in Lithuania. However, I'm not sure what kind of servers do we use. And as this app is, our Meetup app is available globally, anyone from outside the European Union can share their data with us. So we need to discuss this part with the whole team, actually, because I cannot give you the correct answer right now.
Okay, but just the meaning of this, sort of stressing this topic, is that make sure that you're compliant. This is really what we strongly recommend, because otherwise when you launch and you're not, you probably end up in trouble. What is not making it easy is what I said in the slide, is that this was pretty straightforward and clear up till 2-3 weeks ago. And then suddenly they said we had an agreement with these companies, and there's actually a Swiss guy, Adrian and Roland, who is suing Brussels. He did it the first time a couple of years ago, and he won. They said that, well, you can't do this. And they had this agreement like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and he sent in a new petition to the Brussels saying, no, it's not correct, you're not compliant. And this process is now starting again, because this is a very smart lawyer, the Swiss guy. And he's a real open source advocate, and he's really using good arguments. So when he starts talking now, people in Brussels actually listen. They didn't do that a few years ago, the first time he started talking.
Sponsored by some Swiss private banks. that have a good reason to be watchful. Huh?
You think so?
Yeah.
Amar.
Yeah, so we're working with an app developing company in Stockholm, and together with them, we've been, creating the app with the GDPR in consideration. But and we've had the privilege of, having lawyers look at all our terms of conditions and, all of these things that are important to, have a good text on. Other than that, we've been looking at these types of cloud companies or third-party functionalities that we need in the app, a Repeat app. We've been looking to keep it as close to Sweden as possible because we're Sweden-based, and we launched in Sweden now, but we want to go into the Nordics. But Adrian told me I can't say just the Nordics. I must say Norway first, and then Finland, and then Denmark. So we kind of have Sweden covered. We try to keep everything as close to Sweden as possible. I think one of the databases is in Finland. Actually, I'm not sure if it is USA company or not. So I need to double check this actually. So thank you for that.
So thank you for that. I will move forward here. Then we have what they in NICE say describing value. We translated that into go-to-market strategy. You've seen this before. We had it in last Wednesday, but this is really what we mean by describing value. You go through this go-to-market strategy that we showed you last Wednesday and pick the ones that are relevant for you to start building this value proposition, really. Then we have the data collection, we call it, which they call demonstrating performance. And that is actually to make sure that you define the minimum amount of data and patients needed for data collection and start gathering data from different sources like hospitals or healthcare centers and so forth. I know that that was Datatera. This is very close to what you were actually doing on your double-side business model. And then identify the single most important effects to measure, and those who can be verified. Like we showed you with the two cases that we ran, that was actually much smarter to sort of narrow down the scope than trying to go broad. And then structure and focus are key to make you work with valuable data, the ones that will provide you value in time, resources versus current solution, really. So have you done any data collection yet? I think that Datatera is actually a lot about data collection, isn't it?
Data collection about the health data or data collection about the customer? In what way you mean?
It could actually be both.
Okay, yeah, we have been talking and interviewing different people working different roles in the healthcare just to understand different perspectives. And when we have building the MVP, we work with different test data to be able to understand the accuracy and just get some results if this will work in different standards of different medical image, for example. But that's like a long journey that we still continue to talk, and we also talk with lawyers with this data protection and the agreement with healthcare. That's also another story to understand in what way we can collaborate and who will get the responsibility for the health patient data, even we will work as a private company, for example. So, I mean, what we do, we just talk with different people who have different backgrounds and perspectives so that we have a big picture of this puzzle with jurisdiction, data, technology, and patient as well.
Yeah.
And it's also understand the importance of what we learned from, like Andrian showed with the Mindmore and asthma children, that in that case, asthma children have been very good at collecting relevant data, and Mindmore had not done that before. But it was actually quite a short journey from zero data to quite sufficient data for example, Mindmore. It wasn't a very complex process, but we needed to collect it. So it's like we say here, please focus. Don't do it too complicated to start with. Start collecting relevant data.
Yeah.
Roland, have you looked into this? Roland?
Yeah. Pardon me, I was just on something else.
No problem.
Yes, we have. I don't have a very good answer, but yes, we have looked at this, how we collect data. In fact, we're in the process of preparing a clinical study, which will grow our database from 44 persons, from which we have very statistically significant data already, to some 400. And that we do in a very controlled way, also not only for data protection, but also for patentability of data that we're collecting. And then before we go public with any research, any new research and evidence, we want to make sure that we're filing a patent or improving our current patent, if and where possible. But logistically, our solution is hugely scalable. So we have set it up for scale.
Yeah. Okay, I will go forward now because I see we might be running a little bit short on time. So they've been going to what we call delivering value, which is actually the patient journey here. You've seen how we sort of build this up from sort of the entire process, from the initial awareness of a health issue to the final resolution of that issue, and including the touch points with different healthcare providers and facilities along the way. As you will understand later on, that we focus a lot on this checklist in this process together with you on the patient journey, because we think that by delivering value in that way, you're sort of building a stronger communication. But the commercial aspects of patient journey is sort of a delicate balance between providing quality care, meeting patient needs, ensuring sustainable financial practices within the healthcare industry. But by understanding and addressing those, you can actually create a more holistic and successful patient journey when you map this out. So we've shown this before. This is all the framework that we use for this. And what we mean here is that the end customer's process through the healthcare system without and with your innovation and product, as you will see later on in the one-to-one sessions that we'll have. And by identifying the current steps in a normal patient journey, you must describe the patient journey in a very detailed way. In some instances here, it might be just a few minutes in each box. In some cases, it's like 30 minutes. And then you define where your product makes a difference, really. And we quantify the time saved in minutes, and then we quantify those savings in monetary terms. And I know this gives you a fantastic argument for your go-to-market. As Andrian showed with Mindmore, they went from, I think they had closed 1 or 2 deals in the second half year of 2022. And the first quarter of this year, they closed 5 deals by using the patient journey. So it really made a commercial difference to them very fast. And to add more, if your product or service does not correlate directly to the healthcare, you build a customer journey. What are you making more efficient for your customer or your end user? So it mustn't be patient journey, it can be customer journey, of course, too. You're still describing the same value. So we have this checklist. It looks like this, and we will be working on it later on with the patient journey. So have you thought about this patient journey? Have you done it? Rephrase the question, because we are short of time. Have any one of you done the patient journey mapping already? We touched it briefly with GoLed when we started building their budget. And it was very interesting because we found straight away the possibilities of saving time and money. But it was not in the actual patient journey. But sorry, Gule?
Yes, I think this would be very beneficial for us. We definitely have to do it.
Yeah.
And I would just like to add that it's so important in so many different phases. It's important for the patient, the customer. It's important for the healthcare staff, and it's also important for the managers of healthcare, whether it's private or public, that you find good solutions and good terms of closing a deal that will help everyone in the system, not just one single part, but all parties, patient, staff, and companies.
Yeah.
And managers.
Then we have number 4 in the checklist, which is identifying effects. And here we talk, like Adrian mentioned, to identify the quantifiable and non-quantifiable effects, which is actually delivering value then. The quantifiable effects are about time savings, monetary savings identified through patient journey. And the non-quantifiable effects is, so, like we mentioned before, improved patient's experience, increased autonomy for family or relatives, improved staff well-being by decreasing ethical stress, etc. But it's also important to understand that even effects that can appear as non-quantifiable in the beginning can, in the long run, be read into quantifiable effects. It's even that we've seen when we've done these patient journeys that sometimes we can see that this is probably a quantifiable effect, but for the time being, we move it to non-quantifiable. It's quite obvious that we have effect here, but we decided deliberately not to quantify it at this stage. But when you do actually a sales pitch of it, it's obvious to anyone that it actually have a positive effect.
And it's here you can find good facts for patient organizations and unions.
Exactly. So have anyone already sort of identified quantifiable and non-quantifiable effects for a business idea?
I can start if you like.
Yeah, please.
Like I mentioned in the values, we have some non-quantifiable effects, but quantifiable effects for us is very difficult. Since it's aimed at prevention, how can you quantify something that is prevented?
Oh, yeah. That's true.
So we are really having trouble in coming up with quantifiable effects for our product.
Yeah.
But we try to solve it by giving, I'm sorry. Like, for example, 82% of our users feel like they can think more clearly. So like what the users are feeling, we try to quantify that.
Yeah, exactly. And that is sort of relating back to the data collection that I talked about. Other ways you can actually collect data that sort of prove your statement, really. And then you have a quantified effect.
For us, quantifiable data and objectivity in assessing mental conditions is really at the heart of what we're doing by analyzing biomarkers in urine and connect them to symptoms. We're aiming at providing an additional tool to diagnosis or maybe in the first place to the assessment of mental conditions. And the early data that we see is very, very promising, and that would make mental assessments or diagnosis really would provide objective data, besides currently mainly subjective data, questionnaire-based data.
Yeah. Okay. Then we have the production and performance, or the deployment considerations. This is actually something that we find when we start working on the budgets. Some issues here that we need to handle. One is startup and onboarding, because this is sometimes a challenge for a potential customer, actually, because you need some installation or implementation. You might need training of professionals, like we discussed with Guled, record doctor, the other day. How you're going to implement the system? Will it run costs? Will you charge for it? You have some training of end users. Also, the ongoing support, like a hotline, FAQs, a chat, whatever, is almost always also underestimated when we start doing the budgets. You can see that a lot. Actually, both your customers and maybe your end users are interested in getting help if they have a problem. How do you handle incidents and maintenance of your product, and also the continuous product development or improvement? You need to have a plan and an organization for this, and this nice light framework. I actually skip this question, since we only have 10 minutes left. So finally, we have the summary and advice. So to be able to create a value-based pricing model, you need to define the real values that you create with the product innovation versus the current process that they're using. Your product needs to be tested by several healthcare providers or customers in order for you to gather relevant data. So strongly recommend that getting some kind of pilot testing and stuff like that to get data, really. Then you can start build your arguments around value-based pricing with the help of the tools such as the patient journey, like we told you a number of times now. And also build your arguments by identifying both quantifiable and non-quantifiable effects, give you soft and hard facts to actually go straight into your sales pitch. And of course, the sales pitch also directed to potential investors. At the stage where you are now, that might even be more important to be able to show them that you actually do make a difference with your product. And again, can't stress this enough when you start up. Focus and focus and focus, both on market level, but also customer segment level. It's neither trustworthy or realistic to meet a possible funder or sort of venture capitalist with a plan to conquer the world within 12 months. We've seen quite a few of those during these 2 years. Focus, make it simple. That is the key word. And like we said, if you work in the health sector, you need to identify and get to know your key stakeholders and know how they can or cannot contribute to your success. And also, maybe the road to success is elsewhere. If it's not working, use what we call fail fast. We've stolen that from Google. But if you're not successful, try something else. Because usually you have a good product. Maybe I need to change your sales strategy or your argumentation if it's a value-based pricing. And common challenges for startups, it's getting into pilot or real customer stage due to the complicated and long procurement processes. So to be able to create a proof of concept based on, for example, customer journey data, you need to be able to test your product in a live setting. And that is to secure funding growth later on. It's hard to get funding if you don't have a proof of concept somewhere. So what we'll do now in a week or two is start one-to-one sessions regarding this nice light, and especially we focus on the patient journey. So for those of you who are interested, we have 1 hour with each of you, but only 1 hour, nothing else. So we will not be able to design a fully fledged patient journey, but we can start building the framework that you need to look into. So before this session, if you're going to book one of them, please prepare as much as possible by defining the current patient journey, what it looks like today, and link to your product or a service, of course. And once you define these stages, identify what the patient journey will look like with your product or service that you will add. What difference will you make? It doesn't have to be finished when you have the session, but you have to have a broad idea about it. And there also might be several different patient journeys to choose from. Just pick the most common one and focus on that one for this session. And if you want to, we can book 2 times 30 minutes. If you think that's easier, we will provide to smaller slots too. And the first bookings start at the 24th of October. That is when we're through the budgets. I think, Adrian, we will put those slots out as we did with the financial slots. Yeah.
Yes, we can do that. I can add that to the same schedule. Just add a couple of weeks. We can do that. Absolutely. It's not done yet, but I will do it afterwards. Yeah.
Okay. With 10 minutes left, David.
I think that's awesome, actually. I thought you're going to need all the time. So well done, everybody. I think it was a lot of food for thought here. Great introduction to a very interesting and important area, the value-based pricing. As Anders said, you're going to have an opportunity to meet with the team one-to-one and dig into nice light and the patient journey. So we're looking forward to that. I have sent you all the invitation now for the mentor session on the 20th. So please go ahead and accept it if you want to join. Like I said, I think it's quite important because here you have a great chance to build your extended team, even in the long term. So with that, I would like to say thank you to Andriana and Jenny and Anders. Great session. And thank you all for joining here today. And let's dig into all our one-to-one sessions throughout the week. All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Great session.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Good day. Bye.
Bye.